back to the Hustlerholic podcast, where we say it's not just a show, it's a movement. And today's episode is called The Recipe. And it's for a special reason, man. We got two special distinguished guests here. My partner John from Phil and Derek's, very, very well known establishment out here in Houston. And my dog over here, Max from Greasy Spoon. So man, I'm happy to have y'all here. We're excited, man, and gonna dig into this recipe for success, man, that brought you guys where you guys are now, man.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I got my two co-hosts right here. Hey, Floyd. That's gonna get on their co-hosting job.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and break it down, man. I'm Floyd, one of the co-hosts, and what makes me a hustleaholic because I have a compulsive behavior to work and learn, and my philosophy in life is before you earn, you must learn.
There you go. All right, and I'm Michelle, Lily Digital Diva, Hustlerholic, and what makes me a hustlerholic is just like Floyd. I got the hustle, but the academia, I believe in that you learn so you can understand the systems behind what you're doing, because as we say as a hustlerholic, it's a science to the hustle. And so hopefully that today you'll understand some of the science behind the hustles and the recipes to success from these two gentlemen that have graced us with their presence. So with that being said, I'm gonna turn it back over to Rhett.
Hey, y'all already know I'm a confessed hustleraholic. I'm addicted to chasing money and love when money chase me. But the main reason why we're here today, though, man, is to talk about you guys, John. I'm gonna start with you, man. Like I said, Phil and Derek is one of my favorite spots, man. Y'all have really built a strong brand. The way you guys roll out, man. I just kind of want you to briefly kind of roll us through the birth of Phil and Derek's, man, and how you guys things started there.
We, Phil and Derek's has been around for, the brand has been around for 10 years. And my wife and I didn't come to own it until 2017. We opened at the new location Super Bowl weekend of 2017. Okay. How it all got started was I used to do a networking event at Cafe 4212. And that event, we used to get somewhere in the neighborhood of about 200 people to show up every 3 weeks. And then my wife, who was just a friend of mine, we were just friends at the time, she came up to me one night. She said, these are really going well. We should open a restaurant. And I was like, no, let's slow down on that. I'm like, maybe we should start with a wine bar or something like that. And then it wasn't long before I ended up meeting up with Phil. He had a location in the River Oaks area. Right. He lost the lease on his place and couldn't raise the money to make the move from where the restaurant used to be on Bammel Street to where it is now. Uh-huh. And we sat down, we worked out a deal, and we financed the move, and I got thrust into the business of being in the restaurant game.
Okay, yeah. So before that, prior to that, did you have any restaurant experience?
Zero. I was a busboy in high school for 2 years, and then I was a waiter in college for 3 years, and that was the extent of my knowledge of the restaurant business. And that served me very little, I might add, right. Once I actually got into the business and started understanding things. Because, the first year that we were in business, we lost $300,000.
Wow.
So when we agreed to do the deal with Phil, his best year in business was right around $400,000. Right. And then we kind of got in bed with Phil. Right. We did $2.5 million in sales in our first 10 months in business. And I still lost $300,000.
Wow. Yeah. Nah, man, because a lot of people I know don't understand with restaurants and bars that profit margin ain't as big as most. If you don't have your establishment ran right.
It's a small margin business. I don't know if you would agree with that, but.
So Max, tell us the backstory, man, on how you got the Greasy Spoon going, man, and everything. Yeah.
So I opened the Greasy Spoon around last March, kind of right in the middle of the pandemic. So I'm coming up on a year anniversary.
Okay, congratulations.
And it's been a blessing. Now I've been in the restaurant business for about 15 years.
Okay.
And I won't mention the restaurants that I actually helped found and open up, but some things happen that caused me to say, you know what, let me go out here and do what I do. You know, if I've done it before, I can do it again, and just be 100% on it. And so I'm kind of at the point now where everything that I do, you know, I want to own it 100%, right?
Okay.
Because I've had partnerships and stuff before, and it's just a lot of, you know, things that come along with different personalities, different mindsets, and I'm kind of at the point now where, you know, I can do it myself. The team that I have working with me, we've been with me for the past 15 years, and so the systems that I've been able to build over those, you know, the past decade or so, they serve me very, very well now. And so, and you know, it's been good. I've kind of learned how to curve that profit margin a little bit, just because I've been doing it for so long, and so my restaurant is kind of an exception, and normally it's about 10%. I'll be honest.
Right.
At best, you know, 10-15% profit margin in the restaurant business. So even if you make $2 million, you know, you may profit $200,000, and that's if you're doing everything
Right.
you know, right. I've gotten my business to where I profit about 30%.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and that's not typical.
So speaking of that, so when you talk about you've gotten your business to where you've profited now at 30%, but before that you mentioned about team and you mentioned about systems.
Right.
And so tell us how the team, one is that I think a lot of people underestimate the power of team. And we want to go into it because most entrepreneurs, we kind of headstrong. And being, you know, I mean, that's just what it is. Because even if you go out there on your own, you got to be headstrong to even take that chance and bet on yourself. And so sometimes we can kind of minimize the importance of having good people around us because we feel like we're the ones making it all happen. But we don't realize that teamwork is really what makes the dream work.
Right.
And then the systems in place, because you can replace people if you have the right systems.
Absolutely.
So if you could just expound on how that 30%, how that team and how that system allowed you to build where now you can see a 30% an exceptional return, different than what most restaurants are seeing.
And I will say my losses, I did have my losses. Now I've just been in it so long now to where I'm not taking no more L's. All right, but at the beginning, we did lose. I did lose, and I won't say I lost because
You learned.
I learned.
Right.
All right, but just financially, and so one of the things that I realized in getting into the restaurant business is how important building a team was.
Okay.
I spent more time focused on establishing a team and building people. I stopped trying to build the business and started building people.
Gotcha.
And once I built people over time, then they built the business. And so that's kind of what I did that may be different than what some restaurants may do. My focus is, I tell my staff all the time, you hear the cliche, the customer always comes first, right? Well, for me, that's not the case, all right? My staff always comes first.
Gotcha.
If I take care of my staff and I build my staff to a level where they need to be, they'll take care of the customer.
Right.
Right.
All right? But if I don't do that with the staff, then I'm gonna have a hard time making sure the customer comes first.
Right.
And so it's a mindset, and I instilled over years, which has gotten me to the place now to where building the Greasy Spoon over the past year, I don't have to even go to the restaurant at all.
Right.
Speaking of that, and John, I might, if you could kind of elaborate on a little bit on this piece of it is, when you talk about team, a lot of times as Black folks, let's just say that's what we're talking to right now. We build a team based on my brother can do this, my cousin can do this, my sister can do this, and we bring that into the fold when really they good for getting the coffee, but we try to make the coffee the person who is the coffee runner the manager.
Right.
Because I know you've experienced some losses and as you talked about, how have you seen that play out, and then how has that in business, what's your thoughts on that when it comes to building a team and then creating the systems, because a lot of times we don't bring in the right people and that we wonder why it doesn't work.
True, and I totally agree with you on that. I don't have a kicker playing quarterback, and my quarterback never kicks the ball. So I definitely agree with you want to have the right people in the right positions at all times. I also agree with, though, giving family and friends an opportunity to better to better themselves and use them in your business, as long as you can both stay like-minded. It does work in some instances. I got some family members that work for me and they do a great job. But that's because we both are looking for the exact same thing. We're working on the same outcomes. I think the bad thing in business is when you have a person out of position and you make excuses for leaving them there. Right. You're always going to bring someone in that may let you down, that may end up being the person that, hey, this guy isn't working out. But once you start selling yourself on why you should keep this guy, when you're in your heart of hearts, that they're not working out, that's the problem. That's I say get rid of them quickly. Okay. And it helps them out as well. Hey, this isn't working for you, it isn't working for me. Let me get you on the path that you're supposed to be on, and let me get focused on bringing in the type of person that I need.
Slow to hire, quick to fire.
Yeah. And so and with my situation, while we ended up losing, remember I did this as a passive investment when I first got into it. So I was never in the restaurant, but I was depending on my general manager and everybody to do what was necessary to run the business. And then when I looked up 10 months later, we're $300,000 in the hole, although we've done 6 times the revenues that the business has ever done. And we ended up stopping that, but it took my wife and I we had to put down some other toys and come here and focus on this business and make certain that we're watching every dollar come in, every dollar come out. Right. And as my man said, it's a small margin business, but as long as we're watching the profits and watching the expenses, we were able to be profitable.
Yeah, I know it kicked our ass.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say. We had about 3 or 4, and I definitely applaud you guys. Yes. Because it is a hard business, and we've had a couple, and I know how hard it is. And I want you guys to kind of talk about some of the hardships, because especially during this pandemic, I've seen restaurants, some of my favorite restaurants are closing, and I'm like, man, this place closed, but how did you guys, from some of the earlier hardships, learn to stay, you guys are still doing good, so can y'all elaborate on some of the hardships some of the adjustments you made?
Yeah, so I'll speak more so on the hardships pre the Greasy Spoon, because I gotta be honest, I've been in those situations in business with family, and it didn't work out, and you find yourself in a situation where you're having to figure out how to balance maintaining a healthy familial relationship while still trying to maintain a business relationship. And that's very difficult and it's very draining. Especially, like, I'm the kind of person, I'm all for family. I'm all for making sure that, the home front grows and develops and continues to achieve and reach their dreams and objectives and goals. And so, when it becomes situations that hinder that, Albert, can I be transparent?
Absolutely. That's what we're here for.
What the fuck you want on this show, baby?
and I'll keep it mild, But when I was in business with my ex-mother-in-law and my ex-wife, the business became such a thorn in our relationship.
So they became exes.
No, I'm serious. Yeah, seriously. Yeah. That's devastating. That's devastating. I had 2 little girls at the time, and so it affected my marriage because it caused a wedge in between my ex-wife and her family. Because she had to choose, but now she's miserable because she doesn't have, that's her family, and so I had to make the decision to say, you know what? I'd rather move on and you be happy and, and that's what I did. And so starting another restaurant by yourself. Now you gotta understand, we had 5 or 6 people involved at the previous restaurant. So this person is taking care of human resources, and that person is taking care of back of the house, and this person is, so you have everybody kind of delegated, and so here it is now, I have to do everything. Because you gotta understand, like the systems that were in place were held by people who, you know, family members. And so when I started out fresh, all of my people that came with me, they were not in those positions.
Gotcha.
Right.
They were in the actual operational, you know.
I got you.
And so they're cooking and, you know, working the line and or doing whatever. And so I had to figure out, like, man, how do I do everything that was once delegated between 6 people?
Right.
I don't have a partner. I don't have a wife. I don't have, you know, it was just me. And I had to take every single thing that I learned over those past, you know, 12 to 15 years and apply it. Because I'm a businessman naturally. So, you know, I had businesses before the restaurant. And so understanding that component is one thing. You know, that's theoretical. That's ideology. But it's another with actually operating, you know, and having to get in there. So I was at my restaurant from open to close every day for the first couple of months. You know, because like my man said, like, you got to be in there. I learned you have to be in there.
Absolutely.
If not, you don't know what you're losing. You don't know what's getting spoiled, what's being thrown away, and all of that is cutting into their profit margin, right?
Or what's being stolen.
Yeah, what's being taken. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
That's what was killing
Killing
us.
us,
Yeah.
village,
And so, you know,
giving away.
I just had to take a step back and say, you know what? If I'm going to do this, then I have to understand everything that comes with it. I've done it. I've seen the ups and downs. So now just take everything you know and apply it into this new direction, and that's what I've been able to do. I've had to fire some people that I didn't want to fire, who are very talented and gifted, but they didn't fit the model. And
One thing, and I know that's why Shell keep touching on it, man, is systems and operations, and especially in y'all line of business. Because so many people wake up and they like, man, I can cook.
Right.
And they, you know, so you got a lot of people that want, and that's why we focusing on sharing this, because so many people out here I know, you know, they always think, man, I can open a restaurant up. That's one of them things that everybody always think.
Right.
And it's so important that they understand the food gotta be good. That's a for sure.
That's what gets you in there.
But
But that's not the whole business.
I'll be honest. That's the first business that we're talking about black people, that blacks want to go into.
Right.
The restaurant. Now, what most people don't understand is it's the most failed business.
Right.
It's the most failed business.
Right.
You know? And so everybody has a recipe that they have from their grandmother that they think is the best in the world. The thing about people who say I can cook, everybody thinks that they're the best at what that is.
Right.
Yeah.
So everybody thinks that they have the best recipe for, you know, oxtails or whatever. And so
they don't sell it.
and so it's like, okay, if that's the case, then, you know, why are, you know, 90% of the restaurants closing? If you have the best,
But what I found out about people that have recipes, they don't want to share their recipe. They like, this is my little ticket. I'm holding on,
But you
and you can't expand.
Well,
You can't.
There's no duplicity in your business model. So
you just spoke on something, because a lot of times when you talk about duplicity and duplication, a lot of times what I find in the black community is what we want to go from an employee to self-employed. We want to own the job.
Yes.
And because we want to own the job, we don't create the systems.
That's right.
We don't create.
You still end up working for somebody.
You're just working for yourself.
You're working for yourself,
You
but
just
you-
employed
yeah.
yourself. And that's because in emotional intelligence in business is low. There's a low emotional intelligence in business when it comes to the black community.
Right.
We're too emotionally tied, one, to our money, because we're not taught to let our money work for us. And that's what a business is really supposed to do. It's really you invest in your money so your money can then work for you, not
My flash verse.
But
absolutely.
I tell you one thing though, I know this will definitely be a talking point. We wanted you guys here because the name of the show is The Recipe. So the one thing I'm learning today, the recipe ain't what's going on in the kitchen. The recipe is what's going on with your system. And if you got a winning recipe for having a great operational system, your chances of being successful are probably far greater.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
And if I can expound on that, to your point, you guys are kind of both saying the same thing. You have to be very deliberate as a business owner to not own that job.
Right.
So although I'm very good at this one thing in my business, I have to be very deliberate to find, train, and get somebody else in there that becomes very good at it. Because you think about the captain of a ship, he doesn't spend time in the belly of it shoveling coal into the furnace.
Absolutely.
He's actually on the captain's deck watching out for the waves, the other ships, and in your business it has to be the same way. If you putting all the briskets in the oven, well then who's watching all the other things that matter in your business? And to your point about recipes, if you can't trust a group of people to get in here and do the things that you need to do so that you can stay focused on your business, then you're probably not going to be successful.
I got a question for y'all too, and either one of y'all can answer it, or it's kind of a general question. I saw this thing where there are very few black restaurants that have been able to duplicate and convert and become chains. Why do you think that is? What is it? Why we don't have soul food, a national chain of soul food? Where are the black Papados and McDonald's and Seafood House? What do you think? I ask each one of y'all, what do you think, John, is the main reason we have not?
I think so. Some of those things that we're talking about, by not having a system in place, not having the right people in place, but sometimes it's because they just have not figured out. You take my business for example. I think that we have the type of model that's duplicatable and that we can put in certain areas, but I'm still solving problems, and I tell my wife all the time. My wife gets very frustrated because we eat out every night, and we eat at all the fancy places, the Tillmans, the Carrabba's, and she gets upset when she eats in a place like that, and then we come back to my restaurant and we see that we're still struggling with just turnover behind the bar,
right.
But then some of the places we go, the bartender been there 20 years,
right.
But the thing I tell her, I say, listen, you're looking at a business that has been in operation for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to look at our number of years in business and equate it to being human, we're 3 years old.
Correct.
We don't even know how to write our name yet.
Right.
We still peeing in the bed.
Right.
We still so you can't compare us to a 40-year-old grown man that has figured out every single thing and he's made all the mistakes. We're still about to make mistakes that we're not even aware that we're making.
Absolutely.
But the thing is, we pivot, we learn very quickly, we make the changes that need to be made, and then we work on to the next problem.
And y'all self-taught. They might have got that.
Correct, and we're self-taught. This is our first time in this,
right.
And so the only reason that I wouldn't personally, from my own experience, I'm speaking of, jump out there and start duplicating other restaurants is because I'm still making mistakes that I feel shouldn't be made if I'm at the point where I'm now ready to open up a chain.
Gotcha.
But that is the vision that I have for what we're doing. I like to see Phil and Derek's, in every major city. You go to Philadelphia, there's one. You go to New Orleans,
right.
there's one. But I gotta fix this model first.
Right.
I'm still leaking a little too much oil to put this car on the road.
I got you.
Right.
So in terms of chains, franchises, we were speaking, and what's your opinion on, or what do you think, and you might have the same answer, so what do you think I may present the question a little different. What do you think we can, black restaurateurs can do to one day us maybe have a national chain?
Mastery. People, the chains that we know, they're not mediocre in the sense of systems, etc. Like we've been speaking on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of us don't take the time or the effort to master what we're doing.
Yeah.
And because we don't learn and we don't continue to educate and self-educate, and we become mediocre. And people don't pay for mediocrity; they pay for mastery.
That's exactly
That's the Kobe Bryant.
And so that's one of the key elements. So, and I'm in the process of doing exactly what you're saying.
Right.
As far as chains all over the country.
Right.
But you have to take one step at a time. And so it's a few more locations, around the city with different concepts. and then, Dallas, and then Atlanta, LA, and so you get to that point, but you still have to make sure, you got to make pit stops every now and then and get the oil changed and have your car serviced before you make sure you keep going, right?
Right.
And so that's what I believe. Education, is one of the key things that prevent us from being able to grow at that level, because we get stuck with where we are. I'll say this: most of what I've done in business and entrepreneurship happened before I was 25 years old. Right. I started at 19, and I did things that people couldn't believe I did because I didn't know I couldn't.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is you have people who are, men and women who are older when they're starting business, and when you're older, you have certain life lessons that create somewhat of a fear inside of you that may keep you from doing things that you would have done had you not known you couldn't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's hard to unlearn an adult.
Right.
And so I think that's fear.
Yeah.
As well is another thing that keeps us from growing at that level and doing certain things. But if you feel like I didn't know I was supposed to be opening up 30 restaurants around the country, then you're gonna go at it as though
and
you're supposed to do it.
What's his name? Cash Money. Baby. He talked about that in the first deal because he got like one of the best deals.
He did.
And he said the reason why is because he didn't know that that wasn't supposed to be the deal. Because from the streets you think you're supposed to double your money on everything.
Right.
And so he did.
Right.
Yeah. No. I often look out this window, man. I look at these skyscrapers all the time, and I say, I wonder what that feel like. Who sanctioned that? Like, who said we're gonna build a 90-floor building over here?
Right.
And it's not enough of us. First thing we think about real estate, we think about flipping some houses.
Right.
And I'm hoping, our platform, we can grow the mentality and relieve people of that fear and start realizing, hell, we can flip skyscrapers.
Right, or that ceiling that we have. Because we typically, even speaking of real estate, we look through our communities. And when I was a full-time real estate investor, you would go through the communities and they would say, and you hear the people say, what they doing over there?
Yeah.
Like what they doing in our neighborhood.
Not what we doing.
Not what we doing.
Yeah.
It's what they doing.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's interesting.
So both of you guys, I know, are not just restaurateurs. You guys are entrepreneurs, hustlers. That's why we got you here. So give me some background on, some of the other businesses that you're involved in and were prior to getting into the restaurant.
So I started out as my entrepreneurial career in real estate as well. I was a mortgage broker. And the only reason that I became an entrepreneur is because I couldn't find a job. I've never had a bank that wanted to pay me more than $40,000 a year. And I just felt like I should be earning more money than that, especially when I was the type of person that I always looked at how much production, I brought to an organization. And so if I'm bringing, $4 to $10 or $15 million worth of production, why are you only paying me $40,000? I think that, but they didn't see the value in me, and thank God that they didn't, because I tell people all the time, had they paid me $60,000 a year, I'd still be working at some job.
Correct.
But because I was always passed over, looked over, I jumped out there and got into the real estate business. I built a large brokerage, sold that business in 2005, got into real estate, went broke during 2008, 2010, had to start all over from scratch again, went through depression. And the one thing that I said I would never do again is I would not have all of my eggs in one proverbial basket. I was 100% into real estate in 2008 through 10 when I couldn't get financing, I couldn't sell properties, I lost everything, and then now, so I'm in trucking, medical transportation. I have a pharmaceutical business. I'm still in the real estate business, and I have a restaurant.
Man, I salute you, because I know exactly what that feel like.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I don't never tell nobody. I never knew depression existed.
Me either until I didn't know I was going through it.
My whole life.
Yeah.
That shit real.
Oh,
Yes.
very real.
And
Yes.
when you,
Very real.
And you gotta, it happens, you know, I know now in hindsight, I could have got up quicker, but the depression feed on the depression.
Yeah.
And the longer you take yourself down that rabbit hole so far, and then finally, you know.
And then fight to stay down there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for your circumstance.
Yeah.
But typically, you don't know you were depressed until you come out of it.
Right.
That's when you
Yeah.
look back and you like, I was tripping.
Yeah.
And the thing about being an entrepreneur, having reached some level of success, is that most people haven't seen the type of money that you've seen. I'm talking about in the black community and in our families. So there's typically, like I was telling my son one time, who at one time was making like $25,000 a month. And he was 19 years old. And I was telling him, hey, you don't make the moves you're trying to make, because if you fall, nobody around you can catch you.
That's right.
They can't. You trying to get a $4,000 apartment? Can't nobody say, well, here go. Let me loan you $4,000. You don't have that type of network yet
Right.
that can say, let me hold you up for a minute.
Yeah.
And typically, people don't understand, like in your self record, if you was making all the money in real estate, and now all of a sudden it's like, man, I knew he shouldn't have spent that money like that.
Nah, you start your brain, your own mind start being your own enemy, because you think
Right.
everybody around you
Is
is
looking at you,
saying
judging
you
you.
failed.
Right.
And part of it is true, but a lot of it is you and your ego
Yep.
thinking everybody was worried about you when they wasn't.
and scared to ask for help.
Yeah. So Max, we're gonna take.
So I'm gonna stay right there with what you just said.
Okay.
So I was brought up a little different, and I didn't realize it until I was in my 20s. I wasn't given a silver spoon, so to speak, but I do come from an established family
Gotcha.
of business persons, and so from a kid, I thought that was just
The norm.
life, the
Okay.
norm.
I got you.
I didn't grow up like most people, as far as now. I'm not saying I had a wealthy lifestyle,
But you had examples,
I had exposure
Exposure.
There
that
you go.
people couldn't even pay for.
Right.
You know, and I was taught very young that exposure expands expectations. That's what happened to me. And
Ooh,
so
that's a good one.
And so I stopped wanting to be a millionaire at 13 years old. And I stopped wanting to be a millionaire at 13 years old because I started wanting to be a billionaire.
There you go.
Right.
It was a different mindset, right? I had just met Drake McClain, who was the owner of the Astros. We had lunch together. But that's the kind of exposure I had. And so growing up, I'm thinking that this is just what it's supposed to be.
No
which
doubt.
is how I was able to kind of do whatever I did. And so, I started off at 19. I was going to TSU, and I stopped going after 3 years because I opened up my first business. I bought a convenience store. Flipped a convenience store. I bought a gas station. I was, in the pharmacy and the clinic world as well. And so I had different things going on. My family's always had a private school that I was a part of. To this day, we had me and my mom. And so, I grew up doing things and making investments. Had losses. I tried to start flipping houses at like 20 just because I had the money to do it. And I would depend on other people to kind of, the contractors to do this. And then I found out you lose a whole lot of money in that business when you're not paying attention to what's going on. What was supposed to be an investment became,
Nightmare.
Yeah. So, I grew up a little different, and I didn't realize until I was in my 20s. So I wondered why people thought the way they thought, and it was more so my staff. I'm like, why you don't know to do that, or to do this, or what made you think that was the best decision to make?
Right.
And it's natural for me because I was trained that way.
They say if everybody on your level, then what level are you on?
Right.
I mean, I tell myself that shit sometimes,
That's
because
right.
I'd be like, God damn, motherfucker, can't see that shit.
Right.
But if they
but-
thought like you,
Then-
they wouldn't be working for you.
Yeah,
They'd be
Right.
your competitor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had certain funks where I go 2 or 3 years, and in my 20s, I didn't do anything because I was probably depressed and didn't know it, right? Because of some losses and some things that happened between my little brother getting killed, because he, caught up in street life. And here it is, you was brought up the same way as me.
Right.
Same parents, same family, everything.
Choices.
I chose one path,
Choices.
he chose another, trying to be the result of what my path created, but didn't want to go through that process.
Gotcha.
There you go.
Right? He just wanted
Want the
fast.
shortcut.
Yeah.
Right,
And so, you know, that affected me and put me down bad. That was around the same time, and I'm getting divorced. So I went through a funk where I didn't want to do anything.
So
You know?
man, you truly a fighter, and you know what I mean. And I know, like, I wanted you to expound too on some of the other major battle. I know you just
And so you know, and that's why I'll say, and I want to. You mentioned, you know, the whole failure thing. I was more afraid to fail because all the expectations were high, and so all my life up until now, I had to. I mean, there's no reason somebody in my shoes should fail, based on the opportunities that have been presented and a privilege. Well, fast forward to 2021, I'm back doing well, you know, in business. I have 2 beautiful daughters, 1 son, and so I'm flying high. And here it is, you know, I get hit hard. In 2020, in June, I got diagnosed with cancer. And so this was the first time in my life that I was not in control, so to speak. Where money couldn't do anything, family, relationships. I might know President Obama, but he can't help me, you know? And so I was helpless. And I was down for about 15 minutes. At the office, I cried for 15 minutes.
That long?
Cried for 15 minutes. And my uncle,
day.
my mom had already texted her brother, my uncle, James Dixon. He's a pastor. And he rushed to the doctor's office before I even left out. He said, I'm coming because I need to kill whatever thoughts you have in your mind right now. I don't want them to take a root, you know? And he prayed for me right there in the parking lot as I was walking to the car, and you know, basically gave me and he's my pastor as well as my uncle, right? And so he gave me what I needed in that moment to not go into what I could have possibly gone into, you know, being young and diagnosed with cancer, and I have all this going on, like you questioning God, why would you do this to me? As much as I give to people and as many opportunities as I create for the people, as much as so many people depend on me, why would you do this to me, you know? And I live good, you know? I'm not one of the youngsters out here that's just, you know, I'm not perfect, but I live a good, a decent life, you know? And so, and it was 2 months after I had opened the new restaurant. And it's COVID. And so it was just everything at one time, right? And so I got sidelined. The blessing in everything is the restaurant went bananas.
That's good.
After COVID hit.
Okay.
You gotta understand, it was around a time where, you know, all the blacks were coming together, we were supporting each other, and where all of your popular restaurants that you like are closing down, some of us are thriving. You know? And that was the blessing in it. And so I've been able to really ride this whole wave, you know, with cancer, you know, as though, you know, I just gotta get to the finish line, but nothing's stopping. I'm still hustling. I'm still grinding. I'm still building other locations with cancer, you know? And I did it because I said, you know what? I got to make sure I'm still moving forward. Mentally. So I went and got another location to open up just to give me something to do forward. So that I don't get stuck, you know, in the moment of being diagnosed with cancer.
You took us all the way to our breakout little deal, man, where we just kind of want to talk about something real briefly before we get out of here. Man, I want to know, that's one of my biggest concerns. Do y'all feel like we got our feet kicked up again already? Like, that's how I feel. I feel like during that moment, what you're talking about, right after George Floyd, we were in a right fighting spirit as a community of people. And I feel like that complacency already back here right now, man. It ain't been but 1 month. into Biden being the president. And I'm just curious, do y'all feel that same way, man? Like, am I tripping, man? Are we ready to just forget about the fighting, that we
I don't know that I feel that we're completely complacent, but I know that I'm afraid of that very thing because we as a country, and I'm talking about as a whole, as Americans, we have the tendency to be very short-minded and, we'll rah about something today, and then 6 months later, it feels like that was a decade ago. And I'm afraid for black people that we're going to be lulled. That's one of the reasons why, I was sort of hoping that Donald Trump would have won his second term, because with him saying the type of rhetoric that he was espousing, it kept us focused on, hey, I need to be with my brother. I need to be making sure I need to be. But when you get somebody that's in there that aren't really doing the things for the black community, but they're, petting you,
got you on the couch spoon feeding.
And so I am afraid for us from that regard. But I think it's folks like us that have to be diligent to make certain that that we stay focused on our black movement and what we need to do as a people, what we need to do in terms of getting our piece of the pie.
And you know what? Just speaking of that, and if I could just semicolon what you're saying about Donald Trump, and Rec, you talked about when we think about Republican and Democrat, right? Mm-hmm. And the history of Republican and Democrat. When we look at the record books, when you do apples to apples, not apples and oranges, and not the emotion that we feel, we've been Democrat for a minute now.
Shit, yeah.
And
liberal.
Huh?
Liberal-minded. I don't really say Democrat.
I mean, if you ask,
the last 50 years,
the last 50
since the 70s,
right?
Well, ain't shit changed.
But my thing on it is, whenever it's a crisis, we all come together. 9/11, black, white, we all, Olympics come, U.S. Same way with the black thing. We all come together. But then, in with your life, when crisis come, everybody pulls together. But then when everything get good and such, I think it's just the nature. But as a people, we just have to keep that foot on the pedal, to keep going forward for other, for the younger generation to come. And the younger generation, to me, are the ones that's really pushing everything. It's never been older people that pushed anything. Even
I'm part of the younger generation.
Right.
No,
I'm with you.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask John about complacency, because you do have several businesses. Mm-hmm. So how do you not get complacent when you reach a level of success? How do you stay from that space of I'm good?
I think, for any person that's starting a business, and if you're in a place right now, even where you don't know where to begin, I'm going to tell you, begin with finding a mentor. And when I say that, it's more difficult than it sounds, because a mentor, in my opinion, is someone that's dedicated to your success, but they're not profiting off of it. Mm-hmm. The people who have poured into me and poured into my life didn't make a dime off of me. They just wanted me to run the race further and faster than they had run it.
Gotcha.
But I had to show myself to be the type of mentee that was not a waste of their time, which means that, and the problem with most of our young people, they don't want to intern. I want to be paid top dollar. Even my own daughter. My daughter graduated with a meteorology degree and with cum laude at Mississippi State, and told me, well, Dad, I'm going to come work for you, but not for a dime less than $80,000. So I said, well, I'll tell you what, first of all, go show me you can get a job for $80,000. My daughter still don't make $80,000. So my thing is that, baby, you got to intern, you got to pay your dues, you got to that process, and someone will see that effort and get behind you and help with that. And I think having that mentor, that like mine, he always lets me know you can do better.
Gotcha.
You can do more. You can save more people. You can put more stores down. You can invest more. So he drives me. My goal was to make $100,000. I called my mentor one day and I said, man, you know what? I made $100,000 this month. The first time that I ever did it, he was quiet on the phone. And I'm like, hello? He stuttered real bad. He was like, okay. He said, you want me to be happy for you? He said, now if you'd have asked me what I want for you, I would want you to introduce me to the 10 other men that you showed how to make $100,000 a month.
Wow.
He said, the problem with your goals, John, is they're all self-serving and they're too small. He said, but if you want me to be impressed, introduce me to 10 other people that you done taught how to make $100,000 a month.
Wow.
So to me, having someone push and kind of give me that perspective keeps me from being complacent.
Okay.
I don't know how everybody else does it, but mentorship is it for me.
I concur with John. I've always learned from people who were already doing what I was trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, I read 10 books a month. You know, that's how I kind of, you know, they say that what's the fastest way to travel? You know, a book.
Reading.
You know, reading.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I think as a people, we're easily distracted.
Yes.
And that's what, when you say we're kicking our feet up now, we're so easily distracted by a new TikTok dance.
Right.
That's going viral. And now we went from, you know, marching to TikToking, which is nothing wrong with that, right? Mm-hmm. You just got to keep everything in perspective. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to, you know, forward advancement as a people, we have to stay focused. And we got to stay focused. And I think that what happens is a lot of times is we'll do something, we'll sow a little seed, perhaps, and then when it doesn't grow at the rate that we think it should grow, making $80,000 first year, then we lose track and we get distracted from something. And like I tell people all the time, I say, you gotta understand the story of the Chinese bamboo tree. You know, you sow a seed the first year, it doesn't break soil. Second year, it doesn't break soil. All the way through year 5, it never breaks soil, you know? And what happens in that 5th year, it grows to be 80 feet tall within 6 weeks. And you think about it and say, man, it took 5 years for this tree to grow 80. No, it took 6 weeks for this tree to grow 80 feet, but it didn't. It took 5 years.
Right.
It was what was going on underground that made it possible for it to sustain the growth for when it did break ground and grow to 80 feet.
Right.
You know, and I think that's where we are. You know, we got to make sure that we sow seeds and stay diligent. Water them, nurture them, give it sunlight, you know, feed it. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, we'll get to what we need to get. We'll get to the promised land.
Right.
You know, but we gotta stay focused and patient and persevere.
Yeah.
Man, on that. Yeah.
Now I just had one more question since it was the recipe. I know.
we got.
I just wanted 3 ingredients that they would give young people. Your top 3 ingredients if a young person, you know, wanted to get in the business.
I'd say first is mentorship. I'd say second is internship. That means that you need to do and study and learn. And I'd say thirdly, I'm very spiritual, and I believe that you have to be doing for others to do for you. There's no such thing as a self-made person. So
right.
We all are standing on the shoulders and the benevolence of somebody else. And I think that even as you're going through your struggle, you can still donate, give back, look out for your fellow man. And I think that you set something in motion where the gods or the universe make certain that your efforts are not in vain.
There you go. Ditto that. Okay.
Man, thank y'all so much, man,
It's a
for the
pleasure.
jewels y'all drop. I'm gonna be completely honest. Every time we do this, we never have enough time, man. So
Yeah, I
I
can
hope y'all
feel
will
it.
come back, man. Like I said, the whole purpose for us doing this, you said it earlier, man, exposure creates
Expand
expectations.
I like that.
And a lot of our people in our community, man, that's why we're doing what we're doing, man. Y'all make sure y'all continue to support the Hustlerholic movement, man. Thanks, John. Thanks,
Thank
Max,
you, brother.
man.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Much success.
Appreciate y'all.
Y'all.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you.
We talking about ghetto dreams, that's right. Diamond rings.